and welcome to all our viewers from around the world. I'm Kristen Schwartz, licensed midwife and MC here at Gold Learning, and I am very excited. I have a speaker here with me today, Lina Mazzoni. Hi, Lina.
Hi, Kristen.
It's so lovely to see you back here at Gold, and I'm so happy to see you because you are located in my old country where I used to grow up. So tell us where you are in the world, and as you bring a little bit of home whenever I see you.
Oh, that's really nice. So I'm in Germany. I live in Hamburg with my family, with my 2 kids and my husband, and it's way up in the north. So usually when people, especially from the US, think about Germany, they think more of the south. Think about the leather pants and everything. So that's not what we have here. We have the coast. That's really nice.
That's right. Yes, the coast. Very good. It's lovely to have you back here. Let's talk a little also about your work. So you are a lactation consultant, of course. You are presenting in our add-on package that we have this year, brand new sucking disorders in children with neurological, muscular, and genetic or anatomical diseases. That's your topic, which is part of the clinical support for infant sucking skills package here. So tell us a little bit about your work. You're an IBCLC and a lactation consultant, also a language and speech therapist. So tell us about your background here.
Yeah. Well, I used to work mostly as a speech and language therapist, and I always worked with children from kind of age 0 and up. And I specialized during my work in sucking and feeding and swallowing disorders. And this is why this topic is really close to me, because before I became an IBCLC and before I started to learn more about breastfeeding, I had the older kids with feeding difficulties, with diseases or, well, anatomical disorders or genetic disorders, and I used to work with them. And when I became more aware that breastfeeding is really important, when I work with kids that have sucking disorders or swallowing or feeding disorders, I learned more about that, and I became an IBCLC. And so I am able now to even work with these kids as babies and help them and their family more when it comes to breastfeeding. So everything I used to do was later in their life. Right. And now I'm able to start working with them really at the beginning, and not just helping them with the muscle tone or the orofacial disorders, but also when it comes to breastfeeding.
That's absolutely wonderful. Absolutely love hearing that. I do have a question there. So now that you're working with the younger children, with the babies and infants, do you see that when you start early with them and work with them early, does that help not only with breastfeeding, obviously, but also then later in life with their sucking skills and their abilities? Have you seen them graduate? Like were you able to follow them during the times?
Well, I haven't seen them for that much older, maybe in the first year or so. But this is where you can see when it comes to eating solids or something like that. And I don't know if it's just because of the breastfeeding and the experiences they had, or maybe because I was there and there was more of a team and they had therapy and everything maybe a bit earlier. But they tend to have more, and this is what we know from studies also, they tend to be a bit better when it comes to everything around the orofacial function.
Right. Yeah. Well, that makes a lot of sense too. So yeah, when you start that early, and that must have been a huge aha moment for you, right? Like, you're working with the older kids. Was that right before you became an IBCLC, if I understand that correctly?
Yes.
And then you entered the field, and that must have been like, wow, right? I mean, then it all came together.
Right, and that was it. And it's the weird thing that when I was at the university, well, we learned everything we needed to know as a speech and
Mhm.
language therapist, but we barely learned anything about breastfeeding. Well,
Hmm.
we knew that breastfeeding is good, and it was
Right.
something like this, and we knew how the sucking works and stuff like that, but nothing more.
Interesting.
And this
Yeah.
is what comes up when I talk to other speech and language therapists, is that this connection, speech and language therapy and breastfeeding, that it's so obvious when you think about it.
Hmm.
And it was again and again when I learned something about lactation and how this works and how it works then on the breast and what happens with the baby. It was like, okay, that makes so much sense.
Right.
Why haven't
Right.
I known this before?
Right, and it's interesting that you see that, but I think speech and language therapy, the education for that at university, that's not an isolated case. We also hear that from
Yeah,
pediatricians, right? They are in
yeah,
medical school and they
right.
don't learn enough about breastfeeding or very little information on that.
Yeah,
Well, if you think of it, how important that is, the nutrition for the infants, they they're seeing in their practice too.
yeah.
So do you think do you have plans, or is there anything that is in the works that maybe you're aware of to kind of close that educational gap, to go back to the university or institutions and say, hey, listen, this is important stuff. We need more to learn more about this, or the students need more information on that. Do you know of any initiatives in the area?
Well, I don't know if there's anything already going on when it comes to the universities or the schools where you can
Hmm.
learn, but I would love to do something for the speech and language therapist. So
Right.
would like kind of maybe something like a workshop or something like this where they can get the basics and they don't have to get really deep into
Right. Hmm.
lactation and breastfeeding if that's not what they want, but to know the basics, and when they have a baby that they can connect something, or they can maybe say, okay, I've
Hmm.
seen that and I know what it is, and then they can refer to somebody else. But if you don't know the kind of the background, then you don't know when to refer to somebody else.
Yeah, that makes a lot of
So
sense. And what about the other way around? Of course, now as an IBCLC, you see that side as well. Um, how is the training there? I mean, obviously, not every IBCLC can be a speech and
mm,
language therapist, or
no,
but is there enough in the training education with regards to that? Because it feels like that's such an interconnected field. It would be
yeah,
nice to have, or at least collaborations.
yeah. Well, I know that from where I learned, where I did my courses
Hmm.
and everything, that they have a big part where they talk and explain the oral anatomy and everything. But if you haven't like kind of seen it or
Hmm.
felt it
Yeah.
and work with it, it's still really abstract because you have all these structures and everything. But it gives you kind of a clue, and it
Yeah.
gives you, again, it gives you something. Okay, I see that, and I see that maybe this is not moving the way they told
Hmm.
me it's supposed to move,
Hmm.
and this feels and sees kind of weird for me, and then they know, oh, okay, this is out of my what I am doing, and then I know I can refer to somebody else. But I
Right.
think it really depends on where you learn.
Hmm.
I don't know how it is, well, in Germany with the other courses, how many input they got.
Hmm. Right.
And I
Yeah.
always think you need to know the physiological way
Yeah.
to know how everything else looks.
Right. That's so true. Of course, it depends on what training somebody took, or
Yeah.
where they learned, of course. But let's say if an IBC would be IBCLC or a lactation consultant would be interested to learn more, what kind of tips can you give them to what to look into if they are looking for more information or trainings or anything? What would you say from your experience would be important for them to look into?
I would always say, like, get to know the anatomy, get to
Hmm.
know all the structures that are there, because when you know the structures and you know the muscles and the nerves and everything around that, it gets easier to understand how it works because you know how everything is connected.
Yeah. Hmm.
And maybe look around if there's like a course for speech and language therapists, where it because that's where you can find these things, where there's something about anatomy and or facial structures. And look if you can get into that and maybe take a course there, because I don't know how much there is for IBCLCs, where it's kind of broken down. Yeah, because you don't need to know every nerve.
And that is true. You don't need to know every nerve, but understanding how things are connected is already,
But this is what I would say, like, get to know the anatomy, get to know the structures, and just get an understanding how it works, and it helps a lot.
Oh, wonderful. Well, thank you for that tip. Okay, let's talk briefly also about your presentation that will be available on April 4th. And the title again was Sucking Disorders in Children with Neurological, Muscular, Genetic, and Anatomical Diseases. So tell us, just give us a little overview. What can we look forward to?
Okay, so as I said, I think it's really important to know how everything works. So you will get like just a short overview. How it's supposed to be and how all the structures are. And then I just kind of picked out 3 underlying conditions as an example, where I'm going to talk about like what could be, what could make feeding difficult for these babies when they have this disease, and why breastfeeding is so important for them, and how they can be supported, and not just how they can be supported by a therapist. So but how can they be supported by somebody who works in this family and is, for example, a lactation consultant, and why these kids why it's so important for these kids and so good for these kids to be breastfed or to get human milk.
Right. Wonderful. Well, thank you. I'm really excited about this presentation, to learn more, to see, also to get to know it from your lens of a speech and language therapist, in combination with an IBCLC to tackle that topic. I think there will be lots of good information for our viewers available there, and we are looking very much forward to that here at GOLD.
Thank you.
So thank you, Lina, again here for being here with me today. Say moin moin to Hamburg, my old home area. And we'll see you soon here at GOLD for the presentation. For our viewers, if you would like to find out more about the lecture pack this presentation is part of, which is titled Clinical Support for Infant Sucking Skills, we invite you to go to goldlearning.com to find out more. Thank you everyone for watching. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.